Councillor Laura Ip joins us right now, and the day after a very successful motion, it was passed unanimously at the region to support looking at a basic income policy and calling for a pilot project right here in the Niagara region. So first off, congratulations, Councillor Ip, on the motion going through.
Thank you. I think, the fact that it went through and unanimously is quite significant.
What was discussion like yesterday? I know it wasn't the entire region that was together talking about this, but what was the discussion like on this topic?
Yeah, it's interesting because, there isn't, of course, supposed to be party politics at the regional level, but I think generally you sort of know where people sit on the spectrum. But other than one councillor, and he ended up changing his mind when it came time to vote, everyone was supportive of this kind of initiative, right? We're not calling on the federal or provincial government to implement this. We're saying study it, right? Because we don't, there is actually all kinds of research, but they're quite small pockets of research. So, look at what the CERB has done and why you implemented it, and, consider running pilot projects and studies and that sort of thing to see if this is good policy.
You bring up a great point, and you've been very vocal about this, the fact that the CERB really is almost like a basic income policy. And it has been successful. It has kept people able to put food on the table, to put gas in the car, to do whatever they need to survive. So why not look at this as a situation that we can apply to everyday life once the COVID-19 crisis is over?
Absolutely. And I think I think that's, basic income has been under sort of parts of discussions for quite a number of years now. The pandemic, really, unfortunately, ultimately, it's a global pandemic. This is not a good situation. Really brought to light that, and I guess this is maybe why it's having the impact. People who were working hard for their money and, all of those sorts of things suddenly were unemployed, right? Or just unable to go to work and that sort of thing. And the federal government at least recognized that and said, we need to help people so that they can survive, so we don't end up with even more people who are homeless, who are relying on food banks and those sorts of things.
Basic income as a pilot project was slated to happen until the current provincial government was elected. And then it was one of the things that got axed by their cutbacks. So what you're doing is you're calling on both levels of government to take a look at this and to bring back a pilot project to study how it would actually work.
That's right. So, and this is the thing. I mean, and I said this yesterday during the meeting. There are a number of things at the regional level that we can do with respect to policy to help alleviate poverty. We certainly cannot. We cannot eliminate poverty at the regional level of government. I don't think that any level of government can necessarily do this on their own. So, look at doing something to again study it, see the benefits, right? And what impact is it having on all of those other things that we pay a lot more money for, ultimately?
Now, yesterday it was the Public Health and Social Services Committee that voted on this. Yes. Is there a next step that all of council has to vote on endorsing this letter?
Yeah, so what ends up happening with all of our standing committee meetings, generally committee meetings happen the week before a full council meeting. So, I mean, I'm hoping because the motion got unanimous support yesterday and there are a number, almost half of council sits on the Public Health Committee, I'm hoping that at council next week, the minutes will just be ratified and that'll be it, that it won't be lifted for more discussion, because if it's lifted for discussion, it potentially ends up failing ultimately, right? Because we vote again on the whole motion.
In your opinion, though, really what they're voting for is to put a letter forward to ask for support on a study. And I mean, it's not costing the Niagara region anything really to get that letter to the higher levels of government.
That's right. Yeah. And that's, I don't see, I mean, there was some misunderstanding yesterday initially that the motion was calling for the program to be implemented. The motion just says, we're going to send a letter to put our voice behind supporting this as well. A number of other communities have done this to, again, study it, run pilot projects. Councillor Nicholson from Niagara Falls made the amendment to run the pilot project or a pilot project in Niagara. Of course, I'm going to accept that as friendly, right? Like with how hard we've been hit with so many things over the years, but then especially with the pandemic, it makes some sense to run it here.
Well, with the high unemployment rate here in Niagara as well, it makes even more perfect sense. You have the Niagara Regional Poverty Reduction or Niagara Poverty Reduction Network behind you on this as well.
Yes, yeah, and that's the thing. They've been working on this and a number of other initiatives for years. Again, the research they did in 2013 indicates that all of the consequences of poverty cost quite a bit more than a basic income costs, right? So taxpayers are putting their money somewhere. Where would you prefer to spend it?
And you're adamant about the effects of this is that it really does eventually add back to the economy because the people that are receiving that basic income are spending that basic income back in this economy.
Well, exactly. If you have more money, you spend more money, right? So it's absolutely good for the economy. And I mean, again, it just goes to that point that would you rather spend the money on, people having to use the healthcare system more frequently, people being involved with the criminal justice system, child welfare, that sort of thing, or ensuring that they have a roof over their head, food in their stomach, options for education, that kind of thing. It really comes down to where do you prefer to spend your tax dollars.
Exactly. Congratulations on your motion being passed unanimously, and good luck. Next week, we'll be watching the results and hoping that your fellow councillors endorse this unanimously as well.
Thank you.